Hi, welcome back, guys. My name is Okaili, and very nice to have all of you. Thank you for coming. In Ghana, we have a common illness. I didn't think that I'll find it in Scotland, but I realized that Scottish people also struggle with that illness. It's called the front row syndrome. That there's this discomfort in feeling our front rows first. I'm not saying we could move forward, but if we could, I'd be very grateful. Now, thank you so much, our panel. And like I said, my name is Okaili. I am a psychologist from Ghana, but currently studying MSc Psychology here in the UK. And I'm doing this with my lovely Gemma.
My name's Gemma Morell. I am a level 9 psychology student, union chair, and I'm involved in lots of different societies, running as president, and I'm really grateful to be here today, co-chairing.
All right, we've already spent so much time justing and everything, so we'll just zoom straight into the questions. Thank you so much, our lovely panelists. I am so, I'm impressed with the whole set of people we have here, and I know they are going to give us nothing but the best. So before we start, we just need an overview of what your general thoughts of student engagement is. Which way should we start from? From the left.
We insist.
Your general thoughts about student engagement, and who do you think is responsible for ensuring that some of these engagements happen, especially in higher education? I'll start with Dr. King.
Okay, that's a setup. So I think for me, engagement is an active participation of students in their learning environment, and it kind of involves that socially constructed aspect of their empowerment. I think it goes beyond just attending classes and submitting assignments. It's all about students taking that initiative and empowering themselves. And one of the challenges we kind of face across the sector is that decline in student engagement across board. And the idea is because in most universities, there's actually that absence of that culture to kind of nurture and support students. And it's because the responsibility is not just one-sided. The responsibility of student engagement is three-sided. First, on the part of the institution that creates the framework, on the part of the academics that design the engaging content and lectures, but more importantly, on the students who have that desire to empower themselves and create relevant solutions to the societies in which they serve. So I think the idea of student engagement lies so much again on students being empowered, but also taking the initiative to change the world. So for instance, for me, as a student, I always want to change the world. And my goal over the time has always been to be president of my country. And I realized to do that, I had to be very much engaged in my work, in my classwork. But again, you can't do that in isolation without academics who provide that content and the engaging materials. And students are hungry and aggressive these days. They want exciting engagement. They want assessment that are real world assessment that kind of provide them with an understanding of real world problems. So I think overall engagement is quite unique. It's an active learning and is a product of an exciting culture that gives the student the opportunity to be empowered and also be able to kind of challenge the status quo.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. King. Hi, Sai.
Hi.
Could you also give us your thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. Just to reintroduce myself, my name is Sai. I'm the NUS Scotland president. And I think from a student perspective, or from a national perspective, as a student body, engagement is multifaceted. We go beyond academics when we actually look at the student body, and that's where the role of the student association or the student union really comes into being. I think speaking as an international student myself, I think when we come to an infrastructure as big as universities over here, colleges over here, we seek to go beyond opportunities in our classrooms. So absolutely, academics is something that is absolutely vital. But along with that plays a big role in student support, sports, cultural competence being at the core of whatever we do. And I think that duty really lies with culture change taking part according to demographic change that is basically reflective of how the university is made. And I think the responsibility lies both with students, of course, to avail opportunities, but also staff and institutions to enable students to make opportunities as accessible as possible, as legible as possible, and as much as possible, really. I think when we talk as international students or students coming in from different demographics who are not domiciled to this place, it can be a very daunting kind of environment when we come in trying to find our feet. So we don't actually, there's a sort of a brain fog of availing opportunities. And I think that also applies to our widening access students who come in from deprived backgrounds, who come in from SIMD 20 backgrounds. When you're looking at students coming in from probably a middle class household, it's easier to kind of just join a sports club and have fun. But if you're, or like avail a research grant and just just go to a different country and conduct research. But when you're actually looking at proper student management, student engagement, you would actually want to keep cultural competence and intersectional identities at the core. So you encompass different people coming in from different diverse backgrounds in a university, especially like UWS, to engage with as much as opportunities in academics, in student sports areas, in anything that you actually offer, in opportunities that the student association also offers, and also entrepreneurship and employability opportunities or spin-offs or commercial spin-offs that the university really caters to.
Okay, great. Before we go to Omo, I'll borrow Dr. Kane's words that student life is evolving and now students are looking for more exciting things. Now, as president of the student union, what are your general thoughts on the current engagement with students? What are the exciting things? What experiences would you want to share in addition to your general thoughts?
Okay, thank you very much. I know everybody knows my name, but let me introduce myself again as well. My name is Omowaleola Adebayo, and I'm the student president at the union. My general thoughts about student engagement, I would say that UWS is doing actually very well, and we are improving in the way we are doing our things. At the union, we support students with like welcome events, we have student reps, and again, we are getting support as well from lecturers and academic staffs with trying to like engage students and encourage them to like get involved. Generally, engagement is just about students feeling belong, like you're in an environment that that, oh, I'm part of these people. Especially like Saya said, as an international student, it's very, very difficult from the cultural background, like where we are coming from, coming into a new community. Student engagement is just knowing that your experiences at the environment is not more like in terms of academic, you are doing well in academic and other aspects of your life as well. And I know the student services are doing beautifully well. We have so many challenges in terms of engagement. Students don't just feel like, sometimes we invite them for events, they don't just feel like coming due to personal life balances, work, and so many things they are dealing with. So it's not about, I'm expecting us to have more students in this environment when we call it Student Partnership Conference, but then it's not that they don't have that time, they don't just feel like, why are you calling me for this? So we tend to see more international students in this type of events because we are more like, when we hear something in terms of engagements, we are more into it, but then the cultural differences of people that are domiciled there, they are not interested in I think probably, let me say, what they are interested in is different. So what we should do, or what I would like, or what we are improving on, is how to encourage everybody, all students, to like feel among, know that you are building like friendship that lasts long beyond UWS. In the university, where students make friendship that lasts long at colleges and also, if you are not engaging, so how do you want to build this friendship? How do you want to network? How do you want to say, oh, I made my university days are where I made meaningful friendships and we are still friends up till now. So engagement is just like encouraging us to like get involved. When we call for events or meetings, we have a welcome event. We have like, okay, engage yourself, put yourself up for students rep. They're like, no, I'm not interested. But you want change. If you want to be the change, then you have to be the change. If you want something to change, you have to be like, okay, let me step forward. Let me be the voice of the student. So we are asking, as the voice of the students, I tell students that, oh, I am your voice, But if you're not engaging with me, how do I represent you better? So if you engage with me and you tell me, oh, this is what you are going through, this is how you are faring, this is what you want to change, or this is what you feel that we are not doing better, then we would be able to voice out to say, oh, this is the feedback we are getting from students. But without that, I think we are not really.
Is it to say that students haven't realized the relevance of being involved in some of these engagements and how it even leads to the long-lasting opportunities that they are going to enjoy if they do?
Yes, they are going to enjoy. Like Emily said earlier on, to say that if lecturers could just meet a student to ask you, oh, how are you doing? Bring that friendly approach to a student to say, for me, like I said, if a lecturer still talks to me and say, oh, Omo, how are you doing? Or how are you generally? I'm like, oh, this person cared about me. Oh, then I would have a kind of trust to within that person. So I think this engagement lies between us, within the staffs, within the student, the university, and everybody. So me and you and everybody is the change and the engagements we want to see around. So if I'm not doing it, you are not doing it, then we are not seeing that change. So that's just one.
Okay, great stuff. Yeah. Hi, Gloria.
Hi.
Your general thoughts?
So, first of all, my name is Gloria Laurini, and I'm a development consultant at Sparks. So the core of our mission, our values, is in student partnership. So I've been talking about it for a long time, even before starting working at Sparks. And I find the question particularly interesting because you're asking about what our take of student engagement is. And I've done a bit of literature review, academic research to try and understand and get more of an understanding of what we meant by that as a sector. And you suddenly realize that many people have different opinions of what student engagement is, and it could be the student who's interested in their course and is engaging with the material, is motivated, attending classes, or it could be the students who takes part in sports clubs and societies, the ones who want to be the change. So there was one article I read, it wasn't maybe as academic, but I thought it had a really good analogy of student engagement with cooking to explain it better. So if I'm a chef, well, a cook, barely a cook, I might have some guests, some engaged diners, and they're really keen to try my dish, they're motivated to try it, they might like it, they'll enjoy the dining experience. But then having diner engagement would mean getting those guests in the kitchen and getting them to maybe plan the meal with me and get their taste preferences before we even start the meal, maybe getting them to help me prepare the meal. So I feel like this is a very simple way of explaining there's a different ways in understanding student engagement, and sometimes it feels like maybe we stop at having engaged students, so students who are attending, who are motivated and interested in their course, while I think student partnership, for example, is another aspect of student engagement where you get students actually engage with their own institutions. They feel part of the community, absolutely. I think that has a key role in feeling that you're part of an institution that supports you. You feel listened to by the institutions, and you work with the institutions to develop solutions. And I think the basis of that is building that trust. So if staff is able to build this trust, establish that trust with the students, I think then you get somewhere. So I think who's in charge of that is a bit everybody, basically. It's not just down to academics or support staff.
Exactly. I feel it's a two-way street, just like you're saying. All right, thank you very much. Oh, Nina.
Hello. Hello everybody, I'm Nina. I'm the head of student experience and engagement here at UWS, and the joy of going forth is that you can say everybody else has said I would like to endorse and ring that, and then you've kind of ticked all the you're great, you're going to sound the way that I kind of look at this is it's about a feeling. It's not always particularly tangible, and I was kind of thinking about today and sort of planning for what I was going to say, knowing that I was going to have lots of really intelligent answers that I could jump onto the back of. And I was thinking about my experience in a book club. I know this is going to sound a bit random, but I joined a book club, and I like reading and I like being with people and I like being sociable, but it just didn't work. It wasn't my people, it wasn't my tribe. The way that the books were being selected didn't work for me, and I didn't really want to go. I mean, I attended, but I didn't engage in the book club. And there was a big difference because I was there, I was present, but I wasn't necessarily feeling comfortable to give my opinions. And then I moved and found another book club, and I've now been in it for 10 years, and it's brilliant. I am excited to go. I see value in it. I trust the people that I'm in with. I respect them. I like listening to what they're saying. I think they like listening to what I have to say, although they don't have a choice because we all get 2 minutes to talk. But I have found my place, and there's something about that feeling, and I think that's what effective engagement is that, as Emily was saying, it starts very much with that feeling of belonging. You feel safe in that space, and then it kind of builds and manifests. But there's got to be a motivation for you. What am I getting out of this? What's my purpose in being here? What's the value in me engaging? And I think sometimes a lot of the policies focus on the being in the space, the ticky of attendance, but actually it's about what are we doing to build on that extra value. Why are you here? Why do you want to be here? Why specifically here, and why now? And I think that's really important in engagement. And I'm going to entirely jump on your answer. I think trust is very important, and I think it is everybody's responsibility. And it was like Fraser had said about the saying hello in corridors and that kind of informal kind of conversations. Emily had been at another institution, and I think it was a very small institution, Emily, and you were walking down a corridor and somebody noticed that you weren't staff from there and made sure you weren't lost and you knew where you were going. And I think that's what we should all be doing, is just kind of checking in. But I'd met with a group of our international students who were saying they find it very confusing that we say, hi, how are you doing? And then we walk off. So there's a bit of a cultural piece as well about us, if we're going to say, hi, how are you doing, that we do actually need to pause and allow an answer.
Yeah, I agree, because where I come from, we don't even say hi, we say good morning. And so you meet someone in the corridor, you say good morning, they just look away and walk off. And I'm like, did I say something wrong? Then I realized that, in Scotland we say hi. Hiya. So now we say hiya, and then we keep going. All right. But as a psychologist, I cannot emphasize enough the relevance of feeling safe and belonging to a space. And I feel as a university, as an institution, maybe if we emphasize more on the relevance of creating systems that make students belong, maybe that could be a great ground to start from. All right. Thank you very much, Nina.
Thank you.
Dr. Ian. My favorite uncle was called Ian.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. I'm introduced as the best AD and everything. So hi everyone, I'm Dr. Ian McClellan. I'm the Associate Dean for Learning and Teaching for Computing, Engineering and Physical Sciences. Yes, everything that's been said. I started at UWS in 2001 as an undergraduate student. I was a mature student. I came from an SIM D1 house. There was 6 of us in a 2-bedroom house. And I'm trying to think how I engaged, and when I'm doing this job, I'm trying to think, how did I keep engaged? Because we've got to think about the demographics of our students here. And I'm thinking, not why do we get them engaged, it's why they're not engaging or why they're not staying on our campus and going home. Now, there'll be various reasons. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis that's just, everybody is feeling that. So there's costs associated with that. So most students in this university work. We know that from the pre-arrival questionnaire that gets sent out. A lot of them are working more than 20 hours. There's caring responsibilities. There is, how do we schedule? So we talked about the infrastructure that we can put in place. So we can put the physical infrastructure in place. We could have rooms like we've got the retro games room for our gaming students, and if you've not been, it's amazing. They've got a Spectrum ZX 128K, which was my very first computer that I got for my 10th birthday. It's amazing. We can still play it. Go. But, so we can look at the infrastructure that we do on campus, but it's the additional infrastructure. So it's our VLE system. How do we make that engaging for our students, that they want to be part of it, rather than just turning up and thinking, okay, I've got to go to a chemistry class with Ian and he's going to talk about health and safety, but actually want to come to that class. How do I, and I think this goes back to what you were saying about how do I as the lecturer make my slides engaging, make my VLE engaging, that students want to take part in it. The other thing is the extracurricular activities. How do we get students to linger longer here? And it's about that sense of community that we need to create, and that could be small cohorts of students coming together. It could be wider classes coming together. We have a the Cooper Chemical Society, which is a student-led society, but it's the staff that are running that this year, because we're not getting students to take it and engage it and drive it forward. Why they not want to do that? I think that's the question that we should try and ask ourselves. So we know what makes an engaging lecture, we know what makes an engaging campus, but why are students then not engaging in what we're trying to do? I think.
Great.
Yes.
Yes.
So the why, just like Fraser mentioned, the why. So, Uncle Ian.
That's going to stick.
So currently, where since you've been a student or you've been part of the UWS body since 2001.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you
Blonde
think,
tips.
I did have blonde hair back then.
where do you see student engagement happening at the moment? Has there been any significant change? What are the prospects for future engagements and inclusion for students generally?
So I'm going to move it away from classroom engagement. I'm going to move on to the student voice and getting students and listening to the students. Where I'm not seeing engagement is in the, and I've talked about this with the student union, is the class reps and listening to the voice. So the student staff liaison group meetings, or the division boards that we have, or the school boards, or module evaluation questionnaires, there's no engagement in that will help us, me as a module coordinator, or me as a lecturer, help refine what I'm doing to make it better and to encourage students to engage from that way. So I think where we're not seeing the engagement, which would help me, is in that student voice aspect, and it's why that's happening or not happening in the case. The extra, being a rep teaches you things, it teaches you the life skills that you will need other than the academic skills that you get from your programme. Trying different things to get students engaged, not always happening. So that's always the question I'm asking myself, why am I not hearing the student voice through the formal committees that we have as an institution? I'm hearing it, we're walking along the corridor and speaking to the 4th year students, or the student reps that I know, but I'm not hearing all the student voice that I as an associate dean would want to hear to help drive the engagement and the participation across the school. So that's why I would want to see it.
Okay. So Dr. King, as faculty, over the years, have you realized that engagement with students is changing, is growing in terms of year after year, the people you are engaging with as your students? Does it seem to improve over time, or is it declining instead of?
I think over time we've been, I think the pandemic kind of changed the way we kind of live and see the world. So for me, I kind of like to kind of articulate student engagement along 3 key specific areas. So in the first era was the pre-pandemic, whereby we always had lots of students coming to school. We've got lots of extracurricular activity. There was that in-person touch. Everyone wanted to come to school, meet students, meet their colleagues, and learn. So there was that in-person touch. Then we had the pandemic era, whereby we kind of transformed to a digital kind of space, whereby it was more of digital learning and student learning was done online. Now the challenge we have is the post-pandemic era. The post-pandemic era comes with the blended learning of education. Yeah. But again, we've got the emergence of AI, whereby students are now more of AI students. What I mean AI students is that students are more digitally savvy. I was speaking to 3 or 4 of my students when I used to be in University of Aberdeen. They spoke to me last week. And they've all dropped out from university. And I'm asking, why have you dropped out from university? And they said, Dr. King, we are now influencers. Dr. King, I make close to £5,000 in a month.
Wow.
You know, so what it means is students, there's this change in attitude of students across the sector, not just in the university, across the sector. Students want more. They want to be able to achieve what they could have achieved in 5 years at the moment. So and that's where we as the university, we need to come in to say, how do we also adapt and kind of ensure that we are providing students with the support. In my previous unit, when I used to be a student during my master's, I was always an engaged student. One of the reasons why I stopped being engaged was because the lecturer I had was always telling me no to every answer I said in class. So I stopped coming to class. But luckily she got pregnant and went on maternity leave. And another academic comes in, and it was different. Even when I said a rubbish answer, he would say, excellent, fantastic, that's what I'm talking about. You know, and for me, you know, it kind of built my confidence. Yeah. You know, I started to come to class, started to engage, and we always had these virtual office hours whereby if you had any problems, there's always that support mechanism. So I think it's a total culture change, but again, the university plays an important role in providing those extracurricular activities and more support. The conversation we have now is around mental health and well-being. We must be seen to be providing that support to students, especially people from diverse backgrounds who have a different understanding of the way things are actually done in the UK. stop at that part.
Great. I endorse the mental health part. Yeah. Madam President, so I'll just my final bit, and then Gemma comes in with her round of questions. So where are we currently? I know that the union is doing amazing. Let's give it up for the union. I mean, they are doing amazing work, and like I said earlier, it's a two-way street. But what are the current interventions that you are putting in place, just so that those of us who are students, I'm a student, I have colleague students here also who can maybe pick one or two interests that from here it will be a take-home, that going forward we are going to be active in some of these interventions.
Yeah, thank you very much. One of the major interventions we have right now is the democracy review that we are actually going through. This is just so we can reach wider range of students. We are trying to change the way our democracy is. We used to have like one president, 3 vice presidents before, and we feel like students there are some courses that they have never stood for election before, and they are interested, but due to the way their course is designed and all, they are unable to do that. And then reaching out to students where they can still study and run for election. When you are still studying and you're running for election, you get engaged, you get involved. A lot of students will be like, I want to run, but I don't want to pause my studies for 1 year, and I want to be involved. So a lot of students have this capability of doing more in terms of engaging and driving more students into what we are doing. But with the democracy review now, we would have like VPs for each schools. So you know that you have VP SEPs, you have VP ESS, you have VP HLS that can relate with students in each of their schools. So with that, we are trying to see, like, I know it's going to be a success anyway, but based on all indicators of reaching out during our consultation. So another thing we are actually doing, we have a lot of societies. We have academic societies, we have national society, and a lot of societies. And what we do expect from students is students should bring that initiative. When students bring this initiative, we support them to actually make it a realization for them. But we cannot always be organizing for students every time, because if this initiative comes from students, that means it's their interest. They want to do this. Oh, we want to go on excursion, or we want to plan this party, we want to plan this event, then we can support them. So these are the things we do at the union. So going forward, I would just encourage students to join societies. And even if we have any, I know we have academic and lecturers, academic staffs there, encourage students to form academic societies. Academic societies is not mainly for academics, but they can have other extracurriculum activities done within that society as well. So this is where we are.
Okay, I'll be coming to you with my excursion ideas so that you can go. All right, over to you, Gemma.
Thank you very much. So just to make things awkward and difficult, we're going to start because you're enjoying it over there, being nice and quiet. Right. So our next question is, why do you think student engagement is important? There are lots of literature suggesting it can only be a positive thing, but what are your thoughts on this, and what do you think the challenges are?
So, is it important? Yes. I'm going to go back to the student voice, the SSLG things. For those that don't know, in Scotland we've got the Tertiary Quality Education Framework, and one of the principles there is student engagement and partnership. And it's a student voice at every level, every place. And if I don't hear the student voice, I don't know how to change and develop my modules. I don't know what's working well. I don't know what is working well that I can roll out. As academics, as a school, we come together and at our annual monitoring event and we share best practice. That helps us grow. But until I hear from the student how my classes are going, I don't know what works well that I can help and take to the other school.
Yeah.
What was the second part of the question, sorry?
Sorry, the second part of the question was, what do you think the challenges are? Well,
the challenges, I think, is getting students to come to the formal processes to feedback the student voice to us through the formal mechanisms, which is either as I said, the MEQs, the module evaluation questionnaires, the student staff liaison groups, the board meetings. Those are all things that we need to listen to that we don't get to hear. And the challenges from that are, so yesterday, for instance, I organised a session. Nobody turned up to it, and it was a feedback session. ahead of enhancing an entire division's worth of programs, and none of the student reps came to it, even though we laid it on at lunchtime and we did times and we sorted to make sure that we're on campus to come, but nobody came, even though they accepted the meeting request.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't come, but there must have been a reason why they didn't want and didn't feel that they could come and be listened to in a safe environment and be trusted to give the view. That is what I am currently trying to figure out is the why. So if somebody on the panel has an answer, I am more than happy to listen to them.
Open it up to the panel.
I've got. So I think firstly, engaged students are students who actually are kind of destined to kind of make an impact in the world, you know. And if we see the conversations in the AI space today, we've got OpenAI, NVIDIA, and DeepSeek of China. And the idea around DeepSeek of China is previously we had NVIDIA and OpenAI leading the world in terms of AI. But just last week, DeepSeek came up and pushed OpenAI and NVIDIA out of the conversations. And because DeepSeek is a product of thousands of PhD students who have been engaged over the period and are able to kind of create change. Now the idea is for institutions, right, engagement leads to stronger retention rates. Engagement leads to a vibrant culture and also a strong reputation. But the challenge we're actually seeing today, and in response to your question, is the world has moved beyond in-person activities, and that's the challenge we face. So most of the extracurricular activities that we used to face are now supposed to be held online, because I see my students, even my kids, are all in the online space. So the idea is, how do we kind of position our extracurricular activities and our support initiatives to be perhaps online? Now, I was in one of my classes last week and I asked my students, how many of you follow the university on LinkedIn? Just one person. How many of you follow the university on Facebook? Just one person. How many of you follow this university on Instagram? Just one person. So I think the idea is we must be able to ensure we drive that engagement, not just in the class, but beyond the co-curricular and extracurricular activity. It's going to be difficult because it's not going to get easier, it's not going to get better. So the idea is we must be able to adapt and fine-tune our approach to ensuring that students are engaged and better placed to challenge the challenges of the society.
I agree. If I could carry on,
Yeah.
I think that the issue is the change in student population and cohorts. So even if you were a student 2 years ago, you might not have the same needs and motivation. So having all these structured ways in which we capture the student voice, if the students are not coming, rightly so, you wonder, why are they not coming? So there needs to be that question, so how else can we engage them? Someone was saying earlier in one of like the informal ways in which we capture the student voices. So if you have no students filling in a surveys, maybe we need to look at the method in which we're trying to get the student voice, and also what's the motivation? Is it clear that the students are sharing the student voice because then there's going to be change? Maybe not. That's why we're kind of pushing the more like the student as partners approach, as is like get them, you actually work with us, with the institutions, to develop a better learning experience, and you're going to benefit from it. Sometimes I feel it's also down to communications of the reason why we're doing all these activities, trying to get students to come and share their views. Sometimes maybe that's not going across as well, and we need to look at different ways. There is no one answer. We just put that event on. It doesn't work because the students are so diverse that you only get a portion of the students' population engaging with that. And that's
No, that's perfect. Thank you. Yep. Come
I think definitely, like, I'm very much on board with these points, but also I think when we get into the nitty-gritty of bureaucracy that comes with student engagement, I think the base of what our infrastructure over here in education, in extracurriculars, is bureaucracy. And that is very much set in its old ways. We've not actually evolved with the demographic changes that we've had.
Absolutely.
For example, if you look at the academic timeline, if you actually look at our intake of students versus your academic timeline, a lot of your research, exam resets are not actually aligned with your visa completion dates over here. And that's probably leading to a lot of exhaustion in the student body, from which, you have that, I can't English today for some reason. You basically have that vicious cycle of students getting burnt out, and your student leaders also kind of, having that lived experience and getting burnt out, and these students are in mass numbers. Also, if you're coming in from widely access backgrounds, you have a lot to do with a lot of bureaucracy to do with, you know, securing funding for your places, securing actual kind of, you know, support from the SFC, from different kind of, you know, funding bodies. And also, same applies to SAS, same applies to, you know, different kinds of demographics of students. Same thing when we talk about membership for our sports and activities or clubs. There are a lot of students coming in the spring intake, and we don't actually look at our membership cycles in the kind of flipped manner. We don't actually, you know, offer any kind of flexibility to our students or to anyone who wants to be a member in or who wants to engage in these activities in a different format. So I think we really need to take a step back, because I think we're so engaged, we're in such a positive direction where we think proactively. We don't actually scope out, we don't actually stop and kind of think what our demographics look like, what our student body looks like, what our staff body looks like, how partnership looks like, what is the intersectional grey area that we should be working on. Because again, these are real-time aspects, immigration, financial aspects, coming in from different backgrounds, lack of cultural competence. All of these are really, really key aspects that hurt student engagement or engagement in general. And I think that's something that we should be really kind of rethinking.
Absolutely.
Yep, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to come back. I agree with what you're saying. Thinking about this changing demographic, different cultures. This university is not the same place I was when I started 20 years ago. The world has moved on, which is great. What I would say about engaging students in studies is the online and the blended aspect. We expect students, because we all sit on Snapchat, Facebook, and we know how to watch a reel. We know how to do that. But watching a 30-second reel is not the same as engaging in a 15-minute short summary of how to do a maths or chemistry equation. We expect students to be good at it, but the Scottish school system, and I'll take comments about the international school system, is face-to-face. But we expect students to come to university and be able to absolutely do blended learning when we don't teach blended learning from a primary age. Yes, kids sit and know how to work tablets and, God, I sound like my grandfather. I sound like dad. Know how to work technology, but that's not the same as learning. And that's, I mean, I still don't know how to make a great video for my lectures to do that. And so we've got the staff that need to learn how to do it. We've got students that actually need to know how to engage in blended learning when we don't actually teach blended learning as a tool. And digital poverty and hardship, and students not being able to access the software that's needed, or laptops or tablets that can help them engage, is also an issue that we need to think about as we move on, if we are moving to a more blended approach of teaching.
Although, can I, just add one small point?
Small.
That's so important. I think the digital poverty aspect is so important, and also having access to these resources. But also, half of the demographics of students can't actually do blended learning. You have to be in person.
Yeah.
You can't come in because of your visa regulations. You can't actually do the thing. So when you're being cut off right from the get-go, or probably if you're taking funding from any funding body, you're expected to kind of be in person somehow to just make it to a course. So I think, like, yeah, just to add on to that point, just that's something that we should be keeping in mind as well.
We have to move on because I'm very aware of time. So the next question I would like to ask to Nina, if possible. When do you think is the optimal time to support student engagement? When should we introduce students to this idea, or indeed staff?
That's a really good question. It's a really hard one to answer, because in your head you think right from the start. But then, because we're doing things like induction and start review, and you think about the overwhelming amount of information that you kind of pass to a student, and you think, yeah, I've got my checklist, I've told you about everything, you'll be fine for the next 4 years. And actually it's the need to do that drip feed. So we've moved to a 16-week induction process, which is then that kind of gentle reminder, the drop-in sessions, the refresh of the information that we're giving you. It's really hard, and I was really struck by Helen's presentation earlier about our quality review, and the fact that in September we need to have a group of students ready to talk to the panel about the awesomeness of UWS. and they'll be going through, for a lot of our students, because obviously we have students coming in January and in May, but a lot of the students will need to be briefed and prepared while they're going through, potentially just having had resits, which clash straight into induction, which then goes straight through the whole enrolment process. So we might have students that we want to meet with the panel who haven't enrolled yet. So there is a timing issue is really, really important, as is the communication, because it's really complicated to play the game of university. I mean, even in the room today, we've had to cope with loads of acronyms, and we're trying to understand what everything means. I mean, is e-enhancement, is e-experience, is it's really complicated. Yep. And I think the colleagues have kind of commented, especially if you're as an international student trying to come in and get over the cultural barrier and then understand everything that's being thrown at you, and specifically for master's students who are here for a year, and it's really important that you get in and you get focused, and then suddenly we're going, hi, join a committee, hi, come and join a group with us, come and tell us your opinion. But the overwhelm is huge, and as colleagues have been talking about, it's not just sort of physical health and mental health. We're really poor. Everybody's really poor. I mean, the amount of students that are using food banks, let's not even get started on the challenges with rent. I know, Sai, you are a huge advocate of this as a huge issue across the sector. It's really hard. So if you're trying to kind of get food so that you're energised to come into a class, that's a horrible way to be. And my team is the student success team, and the student hub have to deal with student inquiries. And some of the situations that our students find ourselves in are just devastating. And yet they're still here. They're still engaging, I was going to say attending, they're still engaging, and they're succeeding despite all these things that they're fighting against. It's really difficult. So I think we need to be really cautious to not overwhelm, but I think we need to make valuable opportunities available to students, and I think trying to field out what's valuable and what's not, especially when we've got sector requirements around certain surveys that have to be undertaken and certain things that need to be done as part of the general bureaucracy. Some of the things that are more effective maybe they're nice to do, so we don't do them. Sorry, I could talk for hours, but I will leave that point.
Thank you very much. Waliola, would you like to finish us off with like a short answer?
Short?
Very short.
Okay, in short, to round up, I'll just say that student engagement is you, is me, is everybody, and partnering, it depends on the passion we have. So if you and I have that passion for engaging students, for partnering, co-creating, involving students in, one thing I like UWS for that we are doing right now is involving students in most of these things. You know, you want to hear student views. What do students think? What do they feel? Like, what do they think about the whole thing? So I know that with that, we are going great places with student engagement. And please, for our academic staffs and our support staffs, please, when you meet these students, say hi, smile. You know, it's beyond, like, there's something they say. If you ask me, how are you doing? And I'm saying, fine. No, I'm not just saying fine. How are you doing? So if you ask, how are you doing? Everybody say, I'm fine. No, you're not fine. How are you doing? I want to know how you are doing in every aspect. Look, are you okay? But everybody just say, how are you doing? I'm fine. No, I know you're not fine. If you ask me how am I doing, I'm fine. No, you're not fine. Just tell me, just me, what's going on with you? So I think with that, I think it's just about the safe space students feel.
Yes.
If students feel safe in a place, they feel engaged, they would want to like listen to. Like I said, if a lecturer says to students that, oh, there's a society I want you guys to organize, like we have tabletop society, they play games, we have psychology society come to the student union, we have our buildings that they can use for any of their events, and we support them with this. So if they get this support from staffs, union, university, everybody, it's kind of, it would increase the engagement and the partnership. For me, if you ask me, if you are friendly to me, like I know so many faces there that would say, oh, Homo, hi. Even if it's just greeting, I'm like, oh, this person reminds me, remembers me and knows my name. So I think with that, it will kind of change the cultural barrier that we have with student engagement. I've seen a student says to me that, oh, I'm in final year, what you're asking me for is not going to impact me, so I don't want to contribute to it. But I was like trying to convince, but you can still contribute for people that are coming, no, I'm done, I'm writing my project. I'm like, oh. So that kind of students, I don't know how best to convince the students that you need to be part of this, because it feels like you didn't ask me this when I was in 100 level, year 1 or year 2, year 3, and in my year 4 you're asking me to contribute to this. So it's not affecting me, but just because I feel that the student does not want that change, because if you feel that this change would not affect you, and you care about people that are coming next, you know that your voice would actually affect them and will affect the change. So it's just about. Thank you very much.
Nice.
Thank you very much, everybody.